By the time we realized the dead man was sitting among us, 4 of us were already gone. A college bus trip turns deadly when students discover they're trapped in an endless loop with something inhuman. But here's the terrifying part. One of their friends died hours ago, and his body is still talking, walking, and hunting them down. They thought the mysterious hitchhiker's warning about spirits was just a local legend. They laughed when Sam talked about his aunt's ghost stories. Now, as they drive through the same stretch of forest for the 5th time, watching their friends die one by one, they're starting to understand the true horror. The killer isn't just among them. It's wearing their friend's face. In this dark tale of deception and survival, a group of college students must solve an impossible puzzle. How do you kill something that's already dead? As the night deepens and their options run out, they'll learn the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones sitting right next to you. Welcome to a journey where every mile brings you closer to death, and your best friend might just be your worst nightmare. Subscribe and watch a heart-stopping horror story. Don't forget to press the bell icon. It was 12:30 a.m. and a bus carrying senior college students was passing through a forest road on their way back to Springfield from Hartford. They were returning after finishing their trip. All the students had fallen asleep, exhausted from a day of fun. Near the door, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Davis were snoring. Bus driver Uncle Mike was also driving drowsily. Next to him sat Uncle Paul. Suddenly, a herd of wild boars appeared in front of the bus. Uncle Mike stopped the bus in the forest. After a while, when the road was clear, the bus started moving again. Shortly after, Sam, who was sitting in the second seat right behind Mr. Thompson, woke up from his sleep. Sam was 21 years old, brilliant in studies, but always alone. He neither got along with anyone nor had any friends. He was sitting alone in the second seat. "Sir, I need to use the bathroom." Mr. Thompson opened his eyes halfway and looked out the window. They were still in the forest. "Sit for a while. Wake me up when the forest ends, and I'll have the bus stopped," he said, and went back to sleep. Sam looked out the bus window and started waiting for the forest to end. Soon the forest ended, and the bus came to a desolate place. He woke up Mr. Thompson, who asked the driver to stop the bus. As soon as the bus stopped, Mr. Thompson announced, "If anyone needs to use the bathroom, get down now. Otherwise, the bus will only stop once we reach Springfield." Hearing this, Chris woke up from his sleep in the back seat. Mr. Thompson took a flashlight and got off the bus first. Sam and Chris followed him, and they both went behind different bushes to relieve themselves. Sam returned from the bathroom, but Chris hadn't come back yet. Suddenly, Chris screamed loudly. Hearing his voice, Mr. Thompson and Sam ran towards him, but then Chris came out from behind the bushes. "What happened? Why did you scream?" "Nothing, sir. Just stepped on a thorn through my slipper." Hearing his voice, the driver and Paul had also gotten down. They were all about to get back on the bus when suddenly a motorcycle stopped in front of the bus. "Hey, brother, you're not from around here, are you? Don't you know that people always encounter spirits on this road?" said the motorcyclist. Hearing the word spirit, Mr. Thompson said, "Yes, we know, we're just leaving." And they all got back on the bus. "Sir, what spirit was that man talking about?" Paul asked Mr. Thompson from the front seat. In English, chakwa means illusion. They say when people die while traveling at night, their souls become illusions. These illusions catch travelers at night and don't let them reach their destination. They keep them going in circles in the same place. No matter how much you run or speed up your vehicle, you'll end up at the same place where the illusion caught you, or you'll get lost and reach where the illusion wants to take you, Mr. Thompson explained. The driver then added, "And travelers keep circling that place all night until sunrise. They keep getting lost until the sun comes up." As soon as the sun rises, their power diminishes. Some of my driver friends were caught by spirits too. They say spirits only catch tired travelers because it's very easy to overpower them. Well then, this spirit seems very dangerous, Paul said nervously. There's nothing dangerous about it. This is all superstition, Mr. Thompson said. When a driver gets tired, it becomes difficult for them to understand the road at night. That's why they get confused and lose their way. Uneducated people have given it the name of ghost or spirit. Sam and Chris were listening to all this. No, sir, spirits are real, and some spirits are deadly too. My grandfather was so troubled by a spirit that he barely survived. Among all the accidents that happen at night, some accidents happen because of spirits. They are the ruthless hunters of the night. Travelers' fatigue and fear are their strength. Like hunters, they scare travelers, chase them, and take their lives as prey. We only find out that they died in a car accident, but the real cause is the spirit, Sam said in a scary voice. Sir, don't listen to him. His aunt is a writer. He must have heard these stories from her. Writers make up stories, that's how they earn their living, Chris said from the back seat. Chris, be quiet and go to sleep, Mr. Thompson scolded, and after that everyone closed their eyes and went to sleep. Some time passed. Sam was still awake and looking out the window. The bus was passing through the middle of some forest when he noticed a closed tea stall by the roadside. But he had seen that same tea stall in the previous forest too, he thought to himself, and kept looking out the window. Then he realized that this was the same forest that had come before the desolate place. He ran to the driver. Uncle Mike was driving drowsily in his sleep, his eyes flickering open and closed. Uncle Mike, which forest is the bus in? Must be in some forest. Aren't there enough forests on the way? No, Uncle, we've come back to the same forest where wild boars had crossed in front of the bus. No, son, you must be mistaken. That forest was left far behind long ago. Hearing their argument, Mr. Thompson woke up from his sleep. What happened, Sam? Sir, a spirit has caught us. It's trapped us because the bus has come back to the same forest where it had passed before. But Mr. Thompson, like the driver, didn't believe him. Sir, if you don't believe me, look outside. In a while, you'll see an overturned truck by the roadside. And shortly after, everyone saw the overturned truck by the roadside. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. The driver also admitted that Sam was telling the truth. Just then, the forest ended, and the bus reached the same desolate place where they had stopped for the bathroom break. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. Mr. Thompson was completely stunned. Chris had come forward from the back seat. Everyone's faces had turned pale. The bus was still moving on the road when it again entered the same forest. Everyone now knew that a spirit had caught them. The driver was looking for another route, but the bus would still return to the same forest. It seemed as if in the whole world there was only one road that kept bringing them back to this forest. Sir, how do we escape this spirit now? I've heard we can only escape from a spirit when the sun rises. This means we have to travel on this road all night, from forest to wasteland and wasteland to forest. Why don't we just stop at that desolate place and wait for sunrise? The driver said while driving. No, I've heard stopping isn't good when caught by a spirit. No, sir, my aunt told me that if we find a safe place, there's no problem in stopping. That's all I know. Is there no other way? There is, but not for now. Besides, if the spirit that has caught us is weak, its powers will weaken in a few hours, and we'll escape from the spirit. Then it can't catch us again, Sam explained. Hearing all this conversation, Mr. Walker, who had been sleeping, woke up. Hey, what happened? Have we reached Pine Grove? Mr. Walker asked while yawning. Then everyone told him about what had happened. Hearing this, Mr. Walker was shocked. But just then, the driver shouted, "Sir, there's a town ahead." Everyone ran towards the driver. Then they saw a sign by the roadside that read, "Welcome to Pine Grove." "This is my town," Mr. Walker shouted. "But how did we get here so quickly? It's barely been 2 hours since we left Hartford, and my town is 6-7 hours away." "This isn't your town, sir. The spirit is misleading us by showing us Pine Grove after hearing you mention it," Sam said. "But it's good Pine Grove appeared. I think we should find a safe place to hide, and what place could be safer than your house, Mr. Walker?" "But sir, stopping in spirit territory isn't safe, and the spirit itself is dangerous. How can it keep a safe place within itself?" Sam argued. "Do you know more than me? I've been reading and hearing about ghosts since childhood," Mr. Walker decided. "Mike, drive the bus towards my house." Mr. Walker gave directions to his house to the driver, but then they saw a crowd in his street. They couldn't drive further, so they parked the bus at a distance. People in the crowd were crying loudly, and the crowd was facing Mr. Walker's house. Hearing the crowds crying, they all became scared. Mr. Walker got off the bus and went into the crowd. The others followed him. They all pushed through the crowd and reached in front of Mr. Walker's house, and what they saw next made their souls shudder, because on the ground lay 4 bloody corpses, those of Mr. Walker's wife, child, and his parents. All of their throats had been cut with a sharp weapon. Seeing his family's corpses, Mr. Walker's heart shattered, and he broke down crying. "What happened? Who killed them?" he asked a one-eyed old man in the crowd, crying. "Today your wife took a knife and slit your child's and your parents' throats, killing them, and then committed suicide by cutting her own throat." "But why? Why did she do this?" "You must have forced her to do this. Otherwise, she was a very sensible and kind-hearted person." "What? In all these years of marriage, I never made her cry. And you're accusing me?" "You made her do this. Here, take this knife and atone for your sins. Anyway, what will you do living alone in this world? Take your own life, or their souls will never find peace." The nearby driver tried to stop him. "Sir, what are you doing? This is all a spirit's illusion. Your family is safe at home. This isn't real." But then the one-eyed man spoke. "Hey, if you say another word, we'll hang you in the middle of town." Hearing this, the driver became scared and fell silent. Mr. Walker sat on the ground and placed the knife's edge against his throat. "Sir, don't do this. This is all an illusion. Don't fall into its trap." But Mr. Walker wasn't coming to his senses. Finally, Paul, in anger, slapped Mr. Walker. Only then did he come to his senses and threw the knife down. Seeing this, the one-eyed man became angry. "Brothers, throw these people out of the crowd. We'll deal with them later. First, catch this Walker." Hearing this, the crowd pushed everyone out. Chris, Mr. Thompson, Paul, and the driver were trying to get back into the crowd, but couldn't push through. Mr. Walker was tied up and made to sit on the ground. He was begging for his life. "Someone save me! Thompson, Paul, please save me!" he was screaming when suddenly the one-eyed man cut Mr. Walker's throat with the knife and separated his head from his body. He held Mr. Walker's head in his hand and threw it outside the crowd. It landed right in front of Chris and Sam. They both screamed. Then the one-eyed man said, "Brothers, these city people tried to save Walker. They need to be taught a lesson. Catch them and cut their throats too." The people in the crowd turned toward them all, looking at them angrily. Just then, they heard the bus horn. "Quick, run, hurry!" Uncle Mike shouted from the bus. Hearing his voice, Sam, Chris, Mr. Thompson, and Paul ran towards the bus. Everyone was busy removing glass shards from their bodies. Chris was removing a piece of glass stuck in his hand when Paul came over. "Nephew, let me help," he said, as Chris was his sister's son. The bus had returned to the forest again. Who knew when the spirit would release them from its grip? Mr. Walker had just died. Everyone was terrified. Sam spoke up. "Now tell me what we should do." "Why ask him? Because of him, Mr. Walker lost his life today, and we barely escaped with ours," Chris snapped. "Be quiet. We tried to save him, but he couldn't control his emotions, and that's why he died. It's not my fault," Sam defended himself. "But what do we do now?" "We just have to wait for sunrise and keep driving the bus without stopping anywhere. But the bus doesn't have enough diesel to run until sunrise. If the bus runs out of diesel before sunrise, we'll become the spirit's prey." "This spirit turned out to be more powerful than I thought. It's a new moon night. Maybe it's a new moon spirit. My aunt said there are many types of spirits, and the most dangerous is the new moon spirit. It only comes out to hunt on new moon nights. It doesn't like hunting one or two people alone. It overpowers places where there are many travelers. First, it finds the weakest and most tired person in the journey. It shows them fear, and when they die of a fear, it possesses their body. Then, staying among the other travelers, it misleads them, keeps them circling in its illusion. And when all travelers are exhausted, it hunts them. And by my calculation, the spirit that has caught us is indeed a new moon spirit. And it's among us right now," Sam said in a scary voice. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. "That's all fine, but how do we escape this spirit now?" the driver asked. To this, Sam replied, "Now there's only one way, but there's a chance blood will be spilled." "What's the way?" "The spirit is still sitting among us in some dead body. We need to find it and kill it, because its soul isn't strongly attached to the dead body. As soon as we kill it, its soul will leave the dead body and won't be able to enter another dead body, because a new moon spirit can possess only one dead body in one night. But which one of us is the spirit? It's not in the sleeping students' bodies because they're unconscious. It's one of us fifth." "What? But we're all alive." "No, one of us is already dead. The spirit killed them and possessed their body. After possession, the dead body appears completely like a living person because the spirit uses its power to imitate a living person. But who is it?" Sam became serious and looked at Chris. The bus was still moving through the forest road. The driver was listening to the conversation while driving because he knew if the bus stopped, the spirit would devour him. There was silence in the bus. Everyone wanted to hear the spirit's name from Sam's mouth. Then Sam spoke. It's Chris who is the spirit." "What nonsense are you talking about? Are you in your senses? Okay, your aunt has written many ghost books, but that doesn't mean we'll listen to whatever you say. Trust me, everyone. Chris is the spirit. When he went behind the bushes at that desolate place, I saw him staring at some shadow. When I went forward to look, I screamed because of the thorn in my slipper, and that shadow disappeared. Perhaps that's when it caught Chris and possessed his body." Paul became angry. "Watch your tongue. He's my nephew. If anyone touches him, I'll kill them." "Sir, don't listen to Paul. I think he is the spirit too, because we all heard Sam's scream from the bushes. Sam is telling the absolute truth," the driver said while driving. "Hey, suspicion points to Sam too. He also went behind the bushes and was invisible. Plus, he was out of our sight. Maybe the spirit pulled him under the bus and killed him there," Paul argued. "Hey, I'm alive. I can't be the spirit," Sam protested. Yes, and this Sam has been helping us all along. Why would a spirit help us?" Mr. Thompson said loudly. "Now you're left, you were right next to the driver, so it's Chris who is the spirit," Mr. Thompson concluded. "Sir, forget about Paul. Get the iron rod from under the seat and kill this spirit," the driver said while driving. Hearing this, Chris fearfully hid behind Paul. Mr. Thompson pulled out the iron rod from under the seat. Paul tried to stop him, but Mr. Thompson pushed him away and struck the rod at Chris, but Chris moved away and fell down. Before he could strike again, Paul grabbed the rod from behind and pulled it from Mr. Thompson's hands, pushed him onto the seat, and struck his head with the rod. Mr. Thompson died, clutching his bleeding head. Seeing this, Sam shouted, "Uncle Mike, quick, come back here. These two have killed Mr. Thompson." Hearing this, the driver stopped the bus in the forest and ran back. He snatched the rod from Paul's hands and pushed him. "You won't listen, so I'll have to kill you first," the driver said angrily to Paul. Before the driver could strike Paul's head with the rod, Paul stabbed a sharp piece of glass into the driver's stomach. The driver screamed loudly and fell down. Just then they heard crowd noises from outside the bus. "They've parked the bus in the middle of the road. If any fast-moving vehicle hits this bus, what will happen? Get these people out. Punish them." Paul ran to the front and saw 5 or 6 people throwing stones at the bus. People started shouting angrily, "Come out! Why are you hiding inside?" "Hey, what happened, brothers? Why are you saying this?" Paul was shouting and asking them, but no one was paying attention to him. Then Sam said to Chris, "These people are just illusions. We're stopped in the forest, so we're in trouble. Mr. Thompson and the driver are both dead, but we still haven't escaped. This means the spirit is still among us. And that spirit is your uncle." Hearing this, Chris's eyes widened in shock. No, this can't be." "Yes, it is, Chris. You saw how your uncle killed Mr. Thompson and the driver. He could have just injured them, but no, he took their lives. Now come out of your uncle's love, Chris, and look at that man. He's not your uncle, he's a spirit." Hearing this, Chris fell into deep thought. "Chris, people will break the bus windows and come inside any moment now, and they'll kill us. Before that, we need to get out of here. I'll drive the bus away from here, and you stab this spirit with this glass shard. The spirit will die and our lives will be saved," Sam said, and headed towards the driver's seat. "But do you know how to drive?" "My uncle owns a travel agency, so I already know how to drive," he said, and sat in the driver's seat. He started the bus and began driving. Paul went back to Chris. Sam was driving the bus very carefully when suddenly he heard Paul scream. He looked in the mirror and saw Paul falling down with his hand on his throat. Chris had a bloody glass shard in his hand. He had killed his own uncle by slitting his throat. Chris came to Sam. "I killed the spirit," Chris said. Hearing this, Sam started laughing loudly and his eyes turned red. In a terrifying voice, he said, "But I am the spirit." Hearing this, Chris was shocked. "Don't be surprised, I am the spirit. When the herd of boars appeared in front of the bus in the forest, that's when I entered the bus. I chose the weakest and most tired traveler. This Sam had fallen into deep sleep due to exhaustion. I woke him up and showed him my true form. Seeing my terrifying form, he died right there clutching his chest. I immediately possessed his body. That's when I learned that a boy sitting in the back seat, meaning you, was half asleep and thinking about using the bathroom. And I started my game. I scared everyone in the bus by telling the spirit story, because fear is my greatest weapon. I deliberately misled you all and took you to Mr. Walker's town and forced you to stop in the illusion. I took Mr. Walker's life. I made Mr. Thompson, your uncle, and the driver fight each other so they would kill each other in their fight. And finally, I made you kill your own uncle with your own hands." Saying this, he started laughing. "This was my game, my hunt. You killed your own uncle, the uncle who risked his life and killed 2 men to save you. What's the use of living now?" Hearing this, tears came to Chris's eyes. He realized his mistake. "Chris, come sit in this driver's seat and crash it into a tree. Take your life and the lives of all these passengers," the spirit said, looking into Chris's eyes. Perhaps the magic of those red eyes was working on Chris. He had come under the spirit's influence, just like Mr. Walker had, and was ready to take his own life. Perhaps Chris was feeling remorse for what he had done and was about to agree to the spirit's words. That's when Chris wiped his tears and shouted loudly, "Uncle!" Footsteps were heard, and when he turned around, Paul had struck the iron rod on the spirit's head and crushed his skull with 4 or 5 blows. You thought you were the only one who could play games? I caught you when you were smiling, watching Mr. Thompson and the driver's deaths. You couldn't hide your happiness. Then your words came to my mind. You deliberately misled us and made us stop in the illusion, and because of you, Mr. Walker lost his life. You accused me of being the spirit. Yes, and you set fire between my nephew, Mr. Thompson, and the driver. And later you told me to kill my uncle. And the limit was crossed when you said your uncle owns a travel agency when Sam's uncle actually runs a street food cart outside our college, Chris said, taking the iron rod from his uncle's hands and speaking to the spirit. Now, wait peacefully for the next new moon night to hunt, because today you became the prey yourself. And saying this, he struck one more blow with the rod on its crushed head. The spirit emerged from the body as black smoke and left the bus. As soon as the spirit left the bus, all the students woke up from their sleep. For the first time ever, a new moon spirit had been defeated by travelers. The spirit floating in the air above the bus started writhing in pain and disappeared into the air with a scream. That spirit got liberation from its existence because it's nature's law that whenever a spirit is defeated by humans, it meets its end and gets liberation. Music. If you liked this story, please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon to watch more heart-stopping horror stories. Music. And there you have it, fellow horror enthusiasts. A tale of friendship, betrayal, and survival on a night that changed these students forever. Some say on moonless nights, if you drive through that forest road, you can still hear the echoes of a college bus engine, forever searching for its way home. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't let it end here. Hit that like button if you felt your heart racing during the spirit's reveal. Share it with a friend who loves a good ghost story. But maybe not before their next road trip. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if you were Chris? Would you have trusted Sam from the beginning? Your theories and thoughts might just inspire our next terrifying tale. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell icon to join our growing community of horror lovers. Every new moon, we bring you another spine-chilling story that will make you question every shadow, every sound, and maybe even your closest friends. Until our paths cross again in the dark. Sleep tight and remember, not all spirits rest in peace.